Just a day after a global sell-off dragged the KOSPI down, South Korea's benchmark index soared 6.8% to close at yet another record high. South Korea's inflation cooled to its slowest pace in 5 months in January, but stubbornly high food prices are keeping pressure on household grocery bills despite government discount efforts. President Lee Jae-myung has vowed to deploy all available policy tools to curb rising home prices in the capital region, as the government moves forward with stricter tax measures aimed at multiple homeowners. The government has made it official that there will be no further extensions to the temporary tax break for multiple homeowners beyond May 9th, though a grace period of up to 6 months may be granted in certain cases given the tight deadline. This comes as President Lee Jae-myung urged authorities to use all available means to rein in the real estate speculation in the capital region. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
Employing all available tools to tamp down high home prices in the capital area. That was the key message from President Lee Jae-myung at Tuesday's weekly cabinet meeting, as he also called for thorough measures.
대한민국의 부동산 이 문제는 정말 이 사회 발전을 통째로 가로막는 아주 암적인 문제가 됐어요. 부동산 거래하는 사람이 나쁘다는 얘기 아닙니다. 그건 시스템이 사회가 그렇게 허용하니까 그렇게 하는 거예요. 정책의 신뢰, 안정성이 꼭 담보돼야 되겠다.
The administration plans to end the grace period for the heavy capital gains tax on multiple homeowners as scheduled on May 9th, with no additional extension. Given the tight deadline, the government is looking to allow the temporary tax break to stay in place for up to 6 months for homeowners who signed a contract before or on the deadline.
For 3 areas in Gangnam as well as Seongsan, we are reviewing a grace period of up to 3 months so that people can settle final payments or conclude ownership registration. For newly designated speculative zones, up to 6 months.
The president appears to have in mind those who oppose or compare home prices with stock prices, urging that a distinction be made between an investment that helps the economy and one that harms it, in particular, people who don't have a home.
집값과 주가를 같은 선상에 놓고 판단하면 안 된다. 저는 이게 좀 모르면 그런 생각을 할 수도 있는데 최소한 사회의 지도적 입장에 있는 사람들이 그렇게 얘기를 하거나 또는 그런 식으로 선동하는 것은 참 옳지 않다.
Home prices have been the main topic in a series of recent social media posts by the president, showing his strong determination to address the chronic issue that is often deemed sensitive. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The Cabinet approved an amendment to the Act on Public Holidays on Tuesday, restoring Constitution Day as a public holiday from this year. This follows the bill's passage at the National Assembly's plenary session last week to raise awareness of the spirit of the Constitution. South Korea marks Constitution Day every July 17th to commemorate the promulgation of its constitution in 1948. The day was removed from the country's public holiday calendar in 2008 due to concerns about reduced labor productivity after the adoption of the 5-day workweek. This year, July 17th is a Friday to make a 3-day weekend. The Lee Jae-myung administration has put its ambitious blueprint for peaceful coexistence on the Korean peninsula down on paper. Our correspondent Oh Si-young reports.
South Korea aims to institutionalize peaceful coexistence with North Korea and pursue a nuclear-free peninsula as the Lee Jae-myung administration's official policy on Pyongyang. On Tuesday, the Unification Ministry released its first full-fledged policy booklet under the incumbent administration, outlining Seoul's position and goals on inter-Korean relations. The policy aims to first institutionalize peaceful coexistence between the two Koreas, build foundations for joint growth, and achieve a peninsula without war and nuclear weapons. Based on President Lee Jae-myung's Liberation Day address last August, the policy establishes 3 guiding principles: respect for the North Korean regime, rejection of unification by subjugating the North, and a pledge not to commit hostile acts that could raise military tensions. Seoul further sets out three main strategies, calling for mutually beneficial inter-Korean exchanges and cooperation, efforts to normalize North Korea's ties with the international community, and practical approaches towards a nuclear-free peninsula.
The term denuclearization has a coercive aspect, but a nuclear-free Korean peninsula puts emphasis on future orientation, and this stage-based approach of suspension, reduction, and dismantlement also proceeds gradually and step by step, taking into account North Korea's position.
But is North Korea interested? Over the past 5 years, the North has blown up communication channels, defined relations with the South as hostile, and continued to advance its nuclear and missile capabilities. With limited options, the government sets out 6 key tasks, including rebuilding inter-Korean relations, preparing for joint development projects, and strengthening broader participation in peace and unification efforts.
The most crucial step at the top level is dialogue. For that, we must restore communication channels. If we want to gain a more synergistic effect, we need public support and cooperation from the international community. I also think the term nuclear-free peninsula has in mind a virtuous cycle structure of inter-Korean dialogue and North Korea-US dialogue.
As South Korea sets out its inter-Korean policy, the focus now moves up north. The upcoming Workers' Party Congress expected in the coming days is likely to highlight Pyongyang's foreign policy direction for the next 5 years. All eyes are on how it may or may not acknowledge relations with the South. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
China's ambassador to South Korea, Dai Bing, has praised the Lee Jae-myung administration's efforts to promote dialogue with North Korea, saying China will continue to play a constructive role on the Korean peninsula. During an interview with Yonhap News Agency on Monday, the ambassador also said China has never asked South Korea to take sides in the US-China rivalry, noting that Seoul can maintain good relations with both Washington and Beijing. Dai also expressed hope for expanded cultural exchanges between South Korea and China, citing their long history of such exchanges spanning thousands of years. Top diplomats of South Korea and the US are slated to sit down for talks in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday local time to touch upon a wide array of bilateral matters, including tariffs. Our Kim Bo-kyung reports.
South Korea's top diplomat Cho Yeon has departed Seoul, heading to Washington, D.C. to have talks with his U.S. counterpart, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, on Tuesday local time. The meeting will take place on the sidelines of Wednesday's U.S.-hosted ministerial meeting on critical minerals. It marks their first in-person meeting since South Korea and the U.S. released a joint summit fact sheet on November 14th. Before boarding the plane, Foreign Minister Cho said the two sides will discuss how to speed up the implementation of follow-up measures to the joint fact sheet, along with other global issues such as tensions on the peninsula. Also on the agenda is President Donald Trump's recent tariff hike threat from 15% to 25%. Cho told reporters that he had talked on the phone with South Korea's Trade Minister Kim Jong-kwan, who said that he had discussed the tariff issue and Seoul's stance with U.S. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick. Cho said he intends to deliver the same message to other U.S. government officials.
South Korea is a democratic country with a clear separation of powers, so agreements between our governments are following the National Assembly's legislative process. We will explain this to the U.S. side, seek their understanding.
Meanwhile, Trump announced through his social media platform Truth Social on Monday that the U.S. would lower the reciprocal tariff on India from 25% to 18%. This following his phone talks with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, where India agreed to stop buying Russian oil, as requested by the U.S. to cut off Russia's war financing. Saying that India decided to buy much more oil from the U.S. and potentially from Venezuela, Trump stated that the lower tariff rate will take effect immediately. With the additional 25% tariff penalty that was imposed due to India's imports of Russian oil also removed, the overall tariff on Indian exports to the U.S. will sharply go down from 50% to 18%. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
South Korea's local elections are scheduled to take place on June 3rd, and preliminary candidate registration for those elections began today. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
Preliminary candidate registration for the June 3rd local elections opened on Tuesday, kicking off a 120-day sprint that will serve as the first major referendum on President Lee Jae-myung's first year in office. At stake are 17 metropolitan mayoral and gubernatorial posts, along with superintendents of education and local council seats, a contest that will gauge public sentiment toward the ruling bloc and the main opposition People Power Party in the wake of former President Yoon Suk-yeol's martial law crisis. The ruling Democratic Party is aiming for a landslide victory to consolidate its grip on legislative, executive, and local power. Its strategy centers on the judgment of insurrection narrative, keeping the 2024 martial law controversy in the spotlight. Crucially, the party is pushing a bold initiative to administratively merge key cities and provinces. The DP believes this reshaping of the map could secure support not only in swing regions but also in traditional conservative strongholds, particularly in the southeast, including Daegu and Busan, effectively redrawing the lines of the election. The People Power Party, meanwhile, is fighting back with a call for a balance of power. Moving past internal politics, the conservative bloc is positioning itself as a necessary check on the current administration. Their campaign focuses on what they term policy failures, specifically targeting housing stability and livelihood issues, arguing that a vote for the opposition is a vote to correct the government's course on real estate and the economy. Key battlegrounds are already emerging under these new dynamics. In Seoul, incumbent Mayor Oh Se-hoon is expected to face a stiff challenge as the opposition tries to defend the capital against the ruling party's momentum. In Busan, the race is tightening, with the DP's administrative merger proposal potentially disrupting the match, with the incumbent from the main opposition, Park Hyung-jun, leading in the polls. With the preliminary candidate registration open, minor campaigning is now allowed. Those registered are permitted to open campaign offices, distribute name cards, and wear campaign sashes. Official candidate registration is scheduled for May 14th and 15th. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The extraordinary session began at the National Assembly this week, and it's looking to handle a wide range of issues from judicial reform to special bills. For more on this, we have our political correspondent An Sung-jin here to walk us through. Welcome, Sung-jin.
Great to be here with you, Hae-ryun.
So, Sung-jin, there's a lot coming up this week and throughout February. So can you tell us about what happened today at the National Assembly?
Right, the extraordinary session of the National Assembly kicked off just yesterday, and it started off with the National Assembly address from the ruling Democratic Party floor leader, Han Byung-do. Han said in his speech that the foremost governing principle of the Lee administration is the lives of the people, noting the DP's highest value is likewise the livelihoods of the people. He reaffirmed the party's commitment to prosecutorial reform to bring a complete separation between investigative and prosecution powers.
The Democratic Party will eradicate any signs of insurrection and complete prosecution reform, judicial reform, and major social reforms.
The main opposition People Power Party is set to deliver its National Assembly address on Wednesday. Now, regarding the plenary session, both the ruling and opposition parties are negotiating the schedule for when it will be. Both parties have talked about prioritizing the passage of more than 80 non-contentious bills related to people's livelihoods. The ruling Democratic Party is pushing to convene a plenary session this Thursday, arguing that they need sufficient time to process all pending legislation. On the other hand, the People Power Party is reportedly favoring a session on February 12th instead of the 5th. The PPP warned that if it pushes through with the session this Friday, it may resort to a filibuster to block the passage of bills. Now, the February extraordinary session, which includes the Lunar New Year holiday, will run through the end of the month. It will begin next Monday with 3 days of interpellations of government officials, covering a wide range of issues including politics, diplomacy, national security, and the economy. This is then followed by bill reviews in standing committees and concluding with a plenary session on the 28th.
So, Sung-jin, then what are some notable bills that are to be discussed at the upcoming plenary session?
Right, as mentioned, the National Assembly is looking to prioritize these non-contentious livelihood bills. The biggest item on the agenda is the special bill that enables South Korea's largest-scale investment commitments in key U.S. industries. While the DP aims to pass the bill as early as this month, the PPP insists that a ratification process is necessary, as it could result in a heavy fiscal burden, setting the stage for heightened partisan conflict.
This law completely destroys the judicial system of the country. This law must be blocked, and I firmly ask our lawmakers to fight against this issue.
In addition to the special bill, the DP said it will swiftly advance prosecutorial and judicial reform bills, including plans to abolish the prosecution's office. The National Assembly will also look into a special legislation that enables administrative integration among regional governments ahead of the June 3rd local elections.
So in the meantime, it looks like the discussions with the DP's proposal to merge with the Rebuilding Korea Party are still ongoing. So how is that unfolding, Sang-jin?
Right now, talks have been continuing over a possible merger between the two parties, but they seem to be going through a rough patch. Voices of growing opposition from anti-merger members from the DP lawmakers have been hinting at an internal conflict. The DP's chairman has reportedly been consulting senior party members by holding separate meetings to hear opposing views, though he stressed that he would follow the will of the party members foremost.
As party leader, I have opened the door to public discussion on the merger. Now, it's up to party members to decide the party's fate.
Thoughts can differ on the merger, but a conclusion should first be reached within the Democratic Party.
Now, we will have to keep an eye on how things are going to unfold for the two parties.
Well, thank you for your wrap-up today, Sang-jin. I'll see you back at the National Assembly very soon.
It was a pleasure to be here, Hae-ryun.
The South Korean stock market staged a dramatic comeback today, soaring well over 6% to close trade on Tuesday at a fresh high. Our correspondent Park Jun-an covers the rally.
Just one day after what traders have called Black Monday, South Korea's benchmark KOSPI staged a stunning rebound on Tuesday to close the market at a new record high. On Monday, the index plunged more than 5%, closing below the psychologically key 5,000 level amid a global sell-off over a new nomination for the chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve. In morning trading, the KOSPI surged over 4%, briefly approaching the 5,200 mark, driven by bargain buying following upbeat overnight performances by U.S. markets. The rapid reversal was underscored by the activation of a buy-side sidecar at 9:26 a.m., halting program buying for 5 minutes. It is the first buy-side sidecar on the main bourse in 10 months, following a sell-side sidecar activated a day earlier. At the market end, the index closed at 5,288, a 6.84% increase from Monday. This marked a rare back-to-back sidecar event, highlighting the market's high volatility and swift sentiment shifts. Driving the local market's recovery was robust buying from foreign investors and institutions, who net purchased billions of won in the cash and futures markets, offsetting heavy retail selling. The pattern was unlike Monday, when retail investors bought and institutions sold. The rally reflected a classic buy-the-dip dynamic, offsetting the concerns over volatile global asset markets. The tech-heavy Kosdaq also joined the upswing, gaining about 4.19% at market close. Overall, the session demonstrated the resilience of Korean markets as investors chose to buy rather than fear selling. Park Jun-an, Arirang News.
South Korea's inflation eased to a 5-month low in January to the Bank of Korea's target of 2%, as global oil prices held steady. Kim Jun-ong has more.
According to figures released Tuesday by the Ministry of Data and Statistics, consumer prices were up 2.0% in January. That was down 0.3 percentage points from the previous month and marked the slowest pace in 5 months. The ministry attributed the eased inflation to oil prices showing no significant change, which reduced upward pressure on overall prices. Despite the improved indicators, however, sharp increases in some items are adding to consumers' grocery bills ahead of the holiday season. Food prices rose 2.6% from a year earlier, with apples, a key item for the Lunar New Year, up around 11%.
Prices have risen significantly. Since we eat apples year-round and prices keep rising, I used to buy them in bulk, but now tend to buy less.
Prices of daily essentials remained elevated, with livestock products rising 4.1% and fishery products up 5.9%. Ahead of the holiday, the government stepped in to curb surging food prices, announcing a price stabilization package last Wednesday. The plan calls for boosting the supply of key items and allocating about $62 million to support discounts on food prices. Signs promoting government-backed discount campaigns were visible across local markets.
Our family enjoys eating dried seaweed, so we buy it often. But prices are much higher than before. Still, with a 20% government discount, I paid about $27, down from the regular price of around $41.
As the Bank of Korea says, inflation is likely to stay around the 2% range in February. Attention is turning to whether persistently high grocery prices will ease. Kim Junong, Arirang News.
South Korea's Education Ministry announced Tuesday that the test of proficiency in Korean, or TOPIK, will be used as one of the college entrance exams in Vietnam starting this year. This marks the second such case following Hong Kong in 2025. Under the new system, students who obtain level 3 or higher will be exempt from taking a separate foreign language test, as the scores will be converted and recognized for college admissions. Speaking on the growing status of the Korean language being used in college admissions abroad, the Education Ministry said it will continue efforts to promote Korean language education overseas. On the entertainment front, BTS is staging its first comeback show here in Seoul at Gwanghwamun Square on the evening of Saturday, March 21st. What's more, the show will be live-streamed to more than 190 countries worldwide on Netflix. Now, this is according to BTS's agency, Big Hit Music. The comeback show begins one day after the release of the group's fifth full-length album titled Arirang. The upcoming performance at Gwanghwamun Square will mark the second time that BTS has performed in the heart of downtown Seoul. Today is Korean Sign Language Day. To mark the 10th anniversary of Korean Sign Language being declared as South Korean's official language for the hearing impaired, the Culture Ministry hosted a commemoration emphasizing equal access and rights. Our Jung Hae-rim was there.
Here at the Modu Arts Theater in Seodaemun-gu, Seoul, people communicate with more than just spoken words. Members of the deaf community gathered on February 3rd, designated as Korean Sign Language Day, to celebrate the event's 6th annual commemoration. This year is particularly significant as it marks the 10th anniversary of the Korean Sign Language Act, a law that elevated KSL to an official language. Held under the slogan, "Today connected by language, tomorrow connected by culture," the event highlighted the beauty of visual language. The ceremony featured poem recitals by the Sign Language Arts Group and award recipients Sign Mindle, followed by awards for those who have dedicated themselves to the development of KSL. Instead of the sound of clapping, the hall was filled with silent applause as attendees waved their hands in the air, the traditional gesture of acclaim in the community. One award recipient highlighted the power of language in restoring connection with loved ones.
One of my students had a deaf family member they couldn't really talk to, but after learning sign language, they told me that communication finally opened up, and now they even video call each other.
The ceremony continued with more festive performances, including songs by a deaf community-based music band, Deaf Vengers. While National Assembly member Park Hong-gun emphasized South Korea's efforts to embed KSL interpretation in areas such as welfare and entertainment during a speech, leaders of the community say challenges remain.
사실 많은 기관에서 언어법이 제정된 이후로 많은 통역이 제공이 되어 있는 것은 같습니다. 하지만 아직도 현장에서는 적용이 많이 안 되고 있는 듯한 모습도 많이 보이고요. 사실 10년이라는 시간에 비해서는 아직은 조금 더 발전의 속도가 여전히 더디다는 생각이 좀 많이 드는 것 같습니다. 가장 시급한 문제는 사실 수어 사용 환경에 좀 실질적인 확대가 좀 많이 필요하다고 생각이 듭니다. 또 언어권 보장 그리고 디지털 미디어 환경에서 좀 다양하게 수업 접근성이 강화되었으면 좋겠다는 생각이 듭니다.
That just meant congratulations on Korean Sign Language Day. Celebrating 10 years of the KSL Act, we imagine a future where language is no longer a barrier, but a connection. 정혜림, Arirang News.
It was another cold start this morning. However, with warmer southwesterly winds moving in, temperatures slightly above the seasonal average appeared during the daytime. Looking ahead, no major cold snaps are expected through tomorrow, which is Ipchun, and Thursday. Starting Friday, a strong blast of cold air will make a return, keeping temperatures below freezing all day. Dry weather warnings remain in place, especially across the eastern areas. Around the East Coast, extremely dry conditions have been continuing. As strong winds are also expected, extra precautions is necessary. Tomorrow morning, Seoul will start off at -1 degree, with Chuncheon and Gwangju -7 degrees. Daily highs will rise to 7 degrees in Seoul, 11 degrees in Daegu and Busan. On Thursday, rain or snow is expected in the northern parts of Gangwon-do province. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Moon Hae-ryun, filling in for Kim Da-mi. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.